This morning we're going to look at the scripture in the Bible from the book of Joshua, and this really details the faith of God's people as they prepared to cross the Jordan River to enter into the promised land. They had been wandering in the wilderness for the prior 40 years, and so this was a long time coming. And I think it's interesting that God used a miracle to allow them to do this, and we'll get into the details of that miracle as we get into this morning. You might be familiar with how they had passed miraculously through the Red Sea, but this is yet another instance where God miraculously allows people to pass through water. And so we will get at it this morning and read Joshua chapter 3. It is the entire chapter, but it's a short one. It's only 17 verses. And so we'll begin in verse 1. It says, "Early in the morning, Joshua and all the Israelites set out from Shittim and went to the Jordan, where they camped before crossing over. After 3 days, the officers went throughout the camp, giving orders to the people. When you see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God and the priests who are Levites carrying it, you are to move out from your positions and follow it. Then you will know which way to go, since you have never been this way before. But keep a distance of about 1,000 yards between you and the ark. Do not go near it." Joshua told the people, "Consecrate yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do amazing things among you." Joshua said to the priests, "Take up the ark of the covenant and pass on ahead of the people." So they took it up and went ahead of them. And the Lord said to Joshua, "Today I will begin to exalt you in the eyes of all Israel, so they may know that I am with you as I was with Moses. Tell the priests who carry the ark of the covenant, when you reach the edge of the Jordan's waters, go and stand in the river." Joshua said to the Israelites, "Come here and listen to the words of the Lord your God. This is how you will know that the living God is among you, and that he will certainly drive out before you the Canaanites, Hittites, Hivites, Perizzites, Girgashites, Amorites, and Jebusites. See, the ark of the covenant of the Lord of all the earth will go into the Jordan ahead of you. Now then, choose 12 men from the tribes of Israel, one from each tribe. And as soon as the priests who carry the ark of the Lord of all the earth, set foot in the Jordan, its waters flowing downstream will be cut off and stand up in a heap." So when the people broke camp to cross the Jordan, a priest carrying the ark of the covenant went ahead of them. Now the Jordan is at flood stage all during harvest. Yet as soon as the priests who carried the ark reached the Jordan and their feet touched the water's edge, the water from upstream stopped flowing. It piled up in a heap a great distance away at a town called Adam in the vicinity of Zarethan, while the water flowing down to the Sea of the Arabah, the Salt Sea, was completely cut off. So the people crossed over opposite Jericho. The priest who carried the ark of the covenant of the Lord stood firm on dry ground in the middle of the Jordan, while all Israel passed by until the whole nation had completed the crossing on dry ground. May the Lord's blessing be added to the reading and hearing of his holy word. So here, the Israelites, we have to remember, first of all, just a real quick 30-second history. They spent 400 years, more or less, in captivity in Egypt, and then they were delivered from that. And because of their disobedience, God said, "You're going to have to spend 40 more years wandering in the wilderness." All the people who were guilty 40 years ago, they had to die off, with the exception of 2. And then you'll be allowed to enter into the promised land. And so that's where we're at now. They, after 440 years, they're ready to go into the land. And we have to also remember that while they were in the wilderness, people, I don't know if we just get the idea that they're just, biding their time, look for food to eat today, and then, tomorrow we'll do the same thing. Well, they're raising families. They're having children, because those people know we're not going to get into the land, but we need future generation to go in. So they're still having kids, and they're replenishing the population. And so you have a lot of people. When I say a lot, I'm talking it could be numbering in the millions, who are all under the age of 40 now, and they're ready to enter the promised land. All that they know is life wandering in the wilderness. And so this is big. They've been told what their God is preparing to do for them. And so Joshua is preparing them for that. It was 2 chapters earlier, in the very first chapter of Joshua, that after Moses died, God reminded Joshua of what he wants him to do. Because God always, he tells us stuff, and then he reiterates it again and again, because he knows that we need to hear it again. And so he tells Joshua, be strong and courageous, for you shall cause this people to inherit the land that I swore to their fathers to give to them. And so the people, they went so far as to go and spy out the land and make sure that it was appropriate. And sort of like old Yogi Berra said, I guess it's deja vu all over again, because this is not the first time that the Israelites spied out land. 40 years ago they did it, and it didn't go too well for them. That's why they had to wander for 40 more years. Because if you remember that story, there were 12 spies sent into the land. And 10 of them came back and they said, people are too big, they're going to annihilate us, we can't do it. But there were 2 men who came back and they said, you know what, they're big, but our God's bigger. And one was Caleb, the other is Joshua, who is their leader now. So these people, they learned their lesson, even though most of them weren't even born when that happened. And so, look what God does. God gives his people another chance 40 years later. And this time the result is different. The spies go in and they say, truly the Lord has given all the land into our hands. And also all the inhabitants of the land melt away because of us. That's pretty interesting. It's not that the children of Israel are afraid of the enemy anymore. The tables have turned. The enemies are afraid of the children of Israel. And it's not because they're big and strong and powerful. It's actually the exact opposite. The children of Israel, the first time that hard times come, they're ready to cut and run. Their history shows us that. It's that their enemies have gotten the reports about their God. And they know what their God has done in the past. He parted the Red Sea. He gave them passage out of Egypt miraculously. He provided manna and quail for them to eat while they were in the wilderness. And he also provided water from a rock. And so you can imagine the word spreading among the people. The God that did these things for his people has promised them our land. So guess what's going to happen? We're going to have to go up against that God. And so they were terrified that the Israelites were coming. They knew this is the God that performs miracles. And it's a situation where God also works things out to grow the faith of his people too. That's what is seen in this miracle of parting the Jordan River. You see, which one? Okay. And so it's time now to enter the promised land. I don't know if you've ever thought of it this way before, but again, you have all of these relatively young people, and the estimates are it could be anywhere from several 100,000 of people to 1 million or 2. It could have been, with the exception of 2, all under the age of 40. What does that mean? Why do I keep harping on the fact that they're so young? Because what is our conventional wisdom and our understanding of young people generally? Immature and impatient. And so as we mature, we get more patient, right? Not the case here. These young people were very patient. They showed exceptional patience because they left this town called Shittim and they went west towards the Jordan. And Joshua says, you know what? Just 3 more days. Be that patient. What would happen nowadays if we tell people, you waited 40 years, I want you to wait 3 more days? Well, haven't we waited long enough? Isn't that how we get so impatient about things? But Joshua doesn't say wait just for the sake of waiting. He says, prepare yourselves, get ready, because this is big. And I think they understood how big this was and how important it was. And so we see great patience in these people. And a quick story about the importance of patience, by the way. A real story happened in the late 1800s. A man named Pearl Waite was a carpenter, a builder of some sort, and he experimented with a lot of different things. He was actually trying to create a business that he could make some money at. So for years and years, people were using gelatin, and they were mixing it with things and eating it. And so he thought this would make a real good dessert food, and I'm going to mix it with some fruity flavors. And so he came up with this food that he could market as a dessert. His wife came up with the name, you should call this Jell-O. That's where Jell-O came from. And so you would think that now I'm going to tell you how Mr. Pearl Waite became a gazillionaire because we're still enjoying Jell-O to this day. Well, that's not how this story ends. Within 2 years, for reasons I'm not clear on, he sold his product to a businessman named Orator Woodward. This was in 1897. He got $450 for it, which doesn't seem like a lot, but converted to nowadays, it's $17,000 he got for this, which is nothing to sneeze at. I'd love if somebody gave me $17,000. But if you consider what the Jell-O company is worth today, that they sell over 1 million packets of Jell-O every single day, he didn't get an awful lot for his great idea. And I mention that because I really wonder, I'm pretty sure that Mr. Waite's descendants, looking back and hearing that story, probably wish that great whatever grandpa would have just been a little more patient. Maybe would have worked on the marketing a little better, worked on his product a little better, and they could have all been gazillionaires as well. So in business, if you don't wait, you can lose out on some money, and it's disappointing. But it's quite a different thing if you don't wait on God's timing. And so not trusting in God 40 years ago, that got the Israelites a ticket into the wilderness and excluded from the promised land. So when we are considering God, waiting can be very important. And so back to the Bible now, it's in Joshua 3:3. That verse is important because Joshua tells the people what to look for. He says, when you see the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord your God and the Levitical priest carrying it, you are to move out from your positions and follow it. And so that's very interesting because this Ark of the Covenant, I should either inform you or remind you, if you haven't read up or studied it recently, it's a box that I'm not sure the exact dimensions, 3 or 4 feet long, a little shorter, and gold plated, and they had to carry it on poles because humans couldn't physically touch it because it was holy and we aren't, or else you'd die immediately. That actually happened several times. And so that's the Ark of the Covenant. It houses the glory of God on earth, or it did for a time period anyway. And so Joshua says, when you see the glory of God passing by, I want you to follow it. And this idea of following goes heavily into the New Testament. What's the first thing Jesus told most of his apostles? Follow me, follow me, follow me. So it's all the same thing here. And so that's what Joshua tells his people to do. And God's instructions to his people were intended to prepare them to follow him. And this now brings us to the discussion of the flooded river. I've never been over to the Holy Land. I'd love to get there someday. Don't know if I will or not, but I've done enough study on it to know that it's a real interesting river in that it can be really, really low during certain times of the year where you can literally walk across. Like sometimes I know you can walk across the Sherman's Creek, something like that. But at other times of the year when it's at harvest and flood stage, now that's a different story. If you try to go into those waters, you can be swept away and be killed. So God conveniently chooses to have this miracle at flood stage. Why would he do that? Why didn't God say, hey, you waited 40 years, wait a couple more months, the river's going to lower, and then you guys just walk across? Because that wouldn't grow their faith. See, that wouldn't be a miracle either. They wouldn't have to trust anyone other than themselves. Or get our stuff together, we'll walk across and make sure we don't slip and fall, and that's about it. God didn't do it that way because it would not test their faith. And so this is about God preparing his people. Even though God's going to do the work, he's going to stop the river, he still has his people play a role in it. It's like with Noah's Ark. Noah didn't start building a boat the day that the rain came. It was 100 years before that God told Noah, I want you to start building this boat. And you're going to build it where there's no water around either. And so there's other examples, but oftentimes God is trying to grow our faith by testing our obedience. And so in verse 15, it says, as soon as the priests who carried the ark of the covenant reached the Jordan, and their feet touched the water's edge, the water from upstream stopped flowing. So again, what does it say the people had to do in order to stop the river from flowing? Just touch your feet into the water at the edge. That's all you have to do. It's like you need to go up to this immovable obstacle that you don't think, that you know you can't get through by yourself, and just confront it that close. And God says, I'll take it the rest of the way. I'll make a passage through it for you. I'm not sure if we even realize how big of a miracle this is, though, because it then tells us that from the town of Adam, north of where they were at, a long distance away, the rivers was stopped and piled up in a heap. Well, we don't know where the town of Adam is, but we hear, unless we research it, which I did, roughly, as a crow flies, 16 to 18 miles away. So that means it's like this. If God says, here at this church, imagine a river running down through Perry County. And God says, I'm going to allow you, this church, to cross it. And so he says, up in Newport, I'm going to stop the river up there. And from that point down here, it's all going to be stopped and all dried out. We're not talking 10 feet, enough for single file line to fit through, anything like that. 16 to 18 miles long of a river times the width as well, all completely dried in an instant. And why would he do that? Couple reasons. Probably, first of all, to show that he can. And the second reason, if you have 1 million or 2 of people, it would take a long time to have a go single file line through a little area in the river, so they could all flood through, pardon the pun. And so that's the kind of a miracle that this is, that we don't even realize when we read this in our modern day. And so something else that we can't ignore is that in verse 17, it says that the priest carried the Ark of the Covenant over dry ground where the middle of the river was, and they stayed there. What impact do you think that had on the people? They're crossing through a river. They knew that it was a flood stage river, that they'd die if they would go through any other way. What do they see? They see dry ground. We see the Ark of the Covenant. We see, an area where there used to be water. The Ark of the Covenant, seeing that in the middle of the river, solidifies in their mind, God's the reason why this is happening. This isn't some freak of nature kind of thing that's going on. And so, again, God is solidifying their faith in their minds. They see the ark. They see the dry ground. They see that it used to be flooded. There's a lot more that I could share with you, but that I think we've hit, the high points. And so what do we learn from it? In life, aren't we taught that you look for the clear path and you go through it because that's probably the easiest one? And day-to-day basis, probably not terrible advice, but it's different when we're following God. Oftentimes we're looking for the clear path and we don't see a clear path. We see not much of a way at all, actually. So what do? Well, you have a couple choices. You can sit down, you can feel sorry for yourself, you can turn around and go back the other way, but that obstacle is still going to remain there. What if we just go up and touch our feet in the edge of the water? Maybe that's what God's waiting on us to do. And then he's going to take it the rest of the way, but we don't see it unless we take the initiative. Maybe that's how God wants us to grow our faith in our own context. And so faith typically grows by doing, not necessarily by hearing. I can stand here all day and read faith stories to you from the Bible, and you say, hey, that's wonderful. But then if we go out of the church and then you have a difficult day, are we any better prepared? It's just living life, and it's following Jesus and following God at the same time. So if your pathway seems blocked or crowded, even barricaded, I think the prudent thing to do is trust God and follow his leading, and he'll tell you what to do. The reality is that most of the time, we don't have the choice of which path to take. Maybe for our young people, you may have the choice. You're leaving high school soon. Am I going to go to a community college? Am I going to go to university? Am I going to get a job? Am I still going to live in my parents' basement? And what am I going to do? Am I going to pursue a relationship with this person? Or am I just going to, do whatever? Those are certain circumstances. For those of us who are older, maybe I can't stand my job. Do I stick it out another 10 years till retirement, or do I try to do something else that I like better? Again, it's relying on God and discerning from that point forward. As I try to close this and wrap this up, I remember when I was first saved. It wasn't all that long ago in the big scheme of things. I'll always remember it. But as I started trying to figure out what it meant to be a Christian and read my Bible and doing those things, I didn't feel confident about following Jesus. I was a new guy, we've all been there. And I had this idea, it's the church leaders, it's those people who God expects more out of them. They're the ones who are prepared. I'm just me. I'm not prepared at all for any of this stuff, but I learned that it shouldn't be that way. That when God calls you, he calls everyone. He had all of the Israelites come through that river, not just the Levites, not just the priests, but everyone. Those who were sick, those who were old, those who were, well, relatively speaking, they were mostly under 40, but still even the infants, everyone came through. And so I think sometimes we look for reasons not to follow God. We look for convenient excuses, but Jesus offers everyone the invitation to follow him today. So let's bow our heads and close now with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for your holy word, and in Joshua we see how just looking at this for a short amount of time this morning, it's certainly my hope that everyone here learned a little something about it. I'm not sure if any of us knew how far of a distance that river was dried out and what that means for those people. And did we understand that, except for Joshua and Caleb, they were all under 40 years old going into the promised land, yet they showed incredible patience and also faith. And so there's a lot of nuances and details, but we don't want to get caught up on those things. We want to focus on the big picture, which is that you ask us to follow you and follow your son Jesus. That's what he told his disciples to do. God, I ask your Holy Spirit to speak to each and every one of us and give us the strength that we need to follow you this day, tomorrow, and the rest of our lives. We thank you and praise you in Jesus' holy name. Amen.